Anyways, let's actually get to talking about the movie. Todd, you're going to start us out on Elemental. So what's it about? What'd you think?
Okay, Elemental is directed by Peter Sohn, and Element City is the setting of the movie. It's a place where kind of everyone can live. The Lumen family moves there, and their daughter Ember, played by Leah Lewis, who is an actress from The Half of It, which is a movie we totally reviewed at some point. And she is set to take over the family fire business because they are a family of fire. And she meets Wade, played by Mamoudou Athie, and he is a water being, I guess. And they know that water and fire can coexist, but they can't associate with each other. But they have this slow building bond that grows between them, and it becomes something of a forbidden romance. They have to work together to figure out how to save her family's livelihood, and they start to see just how similar they are, despite being opposites. And their bond is incredibly just cute and charming. Peter Sohn is an interesting director. He had his other feature movie was The Good Dinosaur, which is the best movie visually that Pixar has ever put out. But the storytelling was so iffy, and it ultimately flopped and underwhelmed. And he also has the most heartfelt and probably best short film they ever put out, also, which is Partly Cloudy. And so he has the talent clearly. So, and I'm happy to say here is where you finally put it all together in long form. The character designs are fantastic. It's filled with just gorgeous colors and vibrant animation. There are a lot of amazing Larry type supporting parts in here. We could easily deep dive this in 2038. The movie is probably most similar to something like Zootopia in tone, but it goes deeper than that. It has that Pixar emotional magic that we get from only their animated movies. Like it's got things like reminds me of Inside Out and it reminded me of Monsters Inc. Even some of their short movies like Paperman and like La Luna. A lesser studio would have just like had this premise and they would just played around with it. But here, Pixar made it so you actually feel like you know what it would be like to live as fire, which is really hard to do. And the details are just so incredibly sharp and thoughtful. It definitely has callbacks to other Pixar features and just other movies in general. The themes are pretty universal. The romance stuff works. The family stuff works. The gags work. It's something. It's saying something about like living in harmony and like how xenophobia can impact a family and your perceived self-worth. And it also has things about class and societal norms and obviously like interracial couples. The movie is heartbreaking, and it's also kind of inspiring. You know one thing at the end, like something climactic happens. You know it couldn't have actually happened, but the way they bring it back came up absolute aces. Like there's just a beautiful conclusion to this movie. 3.5 stars, sort of at the bottom of the top of Pixar, the bottom of Pixar's top shelf. And I just want to go support movies like this, original movies by great studios, not animated comic book regurgitations. This is your Oscar frontrunner. Elemental is a great movie.
Oh, I don't know about it being the Oscar frontrunner. I mean, there's talk of Across the Spider-Verse getting Best Picture buzz, but it's
oh yes,
it's
I know. Thank you, YouTube commenter.
And that's why you don't like it. I mean, have thoughts of your own, Todd, not and follow what everyone else thinks. Anyways, Zach, you're next. What do you think of Elemental?
I mean, that's kind of my reaction too. Like, is this about Elemental or is this about the Spider-Verse? It sounds like you're discreetly reviewing Spider-Verse. I mean, no, all these are like just ball busting Spider-Verse. You know, the great. Sorry, go ahead. The great look and the dynamic characters and the resolution and the voice acting.
Yeah, I mean, is that not how you review an animated movie?
It is, but not the way I reviewed this movie. This movie was a huge disappointment. Man, I mean, I'm just processing a review. Hold on. Okay, so I was underwhelmed by this story. First of all, I think all these points were hit in Zootopia and maybe to a lesser extent Inside Out. I don't think the characters are particularly interesting. I think Ember and her family stand for a potentially problematically large sect of the population. They could be at times Middle Eastern. They seem Asian. They seem Jewish. I don't know. I mean, I know it's meant to be like broad, but I feel like, the character of Wade is really annoying. And he's kind of the reason that Ember's family faces this destruction, because not only is he a water character, but he's inspector for the water board. And I have very little idea what Ember sees of this character because I didn't see it in him at all. Water and fire, can they coexist? Well, not really. I mean, I think the movie has this kind of very, obviously optimistic, but maybe unrealistic view that all the problems of the world can just end when you get into this rom-com situation. The puns in this movie, oh my God, I was getting tired of the puns after 5 minutes. I was waiting for Schwarzenegger to come on and say, "You're a pain in the arse." I was not even really impressed by the animation that much. And I know that a couple weeks ago, we read a movie that I mostly gave up thumbs up for the animation. But like in this movie, man, none of these characters look particularly original. They all kind of, and the movie didn't even really define what each element really was. Certainly not in the way that it was in Inside Out. Gosh, I mean, to me, Todd thinks this is a movie that is indirectly about Spider-Verse. I think this is a movie indirectly about Pixar. I mean, this is or Disney, really. This is a movie that it's baffling to me why this wasn't released on Disney Plus. This feels like a half-baked idea. You know the scene in Burn After Reading when George Clooney and Frances McDormand go to the Coming Up Daisies movie? This is like a movie inside a movie. A lot of critics have said this is what AI would generate if they were to come up with the blandest Disney plot possible, and I don't entirely disagree with that. Is it horribly offensive? No. Does it support ideas that I think are odious? No. It's cute. It's not too long, although it did feel lengthy at times. But I mean, to me, this is a step down, and it's kind of sad because I'm sure was a lot of hard work that went into the movie, and the movie is earnest in its philosophy of not having prejudice against people who don't look like you. That's great. And I think drawing flames is really difficult to do when you're animating it because you can't do it pose to pose. You got to do it straight ahead. I'm giving it a very generous 2.5 stars out of respect. This movie to me should have been on Disney Plus, and I think Disney has a lot of conversations to have in an era of Spider-Verse and Mitchell's versus Machines and Guillermo del Toro. If this is the best work they're putting out, again, I'm not a story editor. I don't have a lot of suggestions. I just wish it was a little bit better.
All right. So Todd says 3.5. Zach says 2.5. I'm at 3 stars in the middle. But I'm leaning a lot more towards Todd. I thought it was delightful. I thought it was charming. I don't see it as quite the masterpiece Todd saw it as, but I think this is the best Pixar's done since Soul. And which isn't a huge bar considering what you've seen. Like Zach's saying it's a step down. You remember the last Pixar film was Lightyear, right? I mean,
that was a step down too.
Yeah, they've been stepping down for a while. And Turning Red was decent.
Turning Red and Soul were great, though. We loved those movies. Those weren't that long ago. We even like Luca.
Soul is 3 years ago. I don't know. Everyone's saying like Inside Out, and I could see that just simply because of the unconventional characters. I saw. I mean, this is like it. Combine like Romeo and Juliet with Zootopia, and then add a little bit of Coco in the fact that you've got a character dealing with expectations from her family, and how do you do your own thing when your family expects you to be a certain thing. I think that was much more the compelling story out of this. However, I do kind of see. I see a little bit of what Zach's saying too, in that, I mean, when you start saying it's this plus this plus this, it is kind of a recycled thing, and it's telling it maybe in an original way, but it's a recycled plot, recycled story. I mean, Zach's saying it doesn't have themes that are offensive or anything. I mean, it's kind of trying to have themes that are universal and that can appeal to everyone and talk about things in a way like this. This is a movie about immigration. This is a movie about accepting people for who they are. This is a movie about all the things that a lot of people are fighting for in society today. That's what this movie is about in a very, very simplified, kind of silly Pixar way. Again, it's not the masterpiece, but it's adorable. You can't help but love what's going on in Elemental. It's not like the top tier where it's gonna, it's completely changing cinema and how it does things, but it's very good. So 3 stars for me.
Well, here's my biggest criticism is that this movie was not groundbreaking in any way, but it could have been groundbreaking. It could have been the first Pixar sex scene. That's what I was hoping for, and we did not get it. Come on, Pixar.
Instead, you had the first Pixar love story. I mean, unless you count Carl and Ellie and Up, this is the
Luca?
first
Which isn't directly.
but that's not even at all. Yeah, this is the first like love story Pixar has ever done.
I think you can make the case that every Pixar movie is a love story in some way. Maybe it's not romantic love.
First romantic love story that Pixar has ever done, outside of the opening montage to Up.
Yeah, and it takes that responsibility. It doesn't tell some like bland story. It tells a story about interracial couples. That's what this movie is about.
Yeah.
And like I think that no other studio is ever going to do that. No other animated movie studio.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. My view is clouded because I saw Zootopia and I saw Inside Out, and I think both those movies, both visually and
Yeah, but you've seen
narratively,
20 Spider-Man movies. What does it? What did that do to your
well, it made
review of that movie? Nothing.
It made it across the universe seem a lot different, seem a lot more distinct, both visually and narratively. This movie, again, it's fine. It's inoffensive. It should be streamed on Disney Plus. Like, okay, here's an example
This movie,
of a missed opportunity.
like Pixar, they said they used like 20,000 computers to make this movie. When on the first Toy Story they used like 20. So like, you say it's not groundbreaking. Like they had to get new technology to make this movie, and you could tell the details of this movie are unbelievable. You can't see that on TV.
The animation is cool. The characters aren't particularly great, but I would say
there's so many great characters. That's why I said there's tons of amazing characters in this movie.
Why couldn't this movie have said something meaningful like about the environment or the climate crisis? Why did it have
We've
to be
heard that before.
What, in Disney, other than maybe WALL-E? Like that,
Yeah,
that's
WALL-E.
where I think this movie could have made an impact. Why? I just didn't understand why it had to be a romantic love story. I get what Terry's saying, that maybe was part of it being groundbreaking, but that was the least interesting part of the story for me. The most interesting part was the part that you were talking about initially, Todd, which is the immigration experience. Like that's a cool part of the movie, and I wish it had been much more grounded in the conflict, the generational conflict between father and daughter, the fact she doesn't want to run it. That is, again, not entirely original, but more unique, more compelling, and I thought was more interesting than some kind of has-been love story.
So don't be a simple love story. Be an immigration story about the climate.
Yeah, I think that's
gotcha. That sounds like,
or be about Spider-Man.
Or yeah.
But the problem with the love story is I don't see and no pun intended, chemistry between these two characters. Why are they attracted to each other? Can we just admit the puns were a little lame? Like when it was, when we got to the truck that said what was it? Toyota? I mean, come on.
I love the like what was it, like basically Quidditch match thing, because like I don't think I've ever seen an animated movie like, or any movie really, where you get the like somebody who hates sports goes to something and they see just how unbelievable it is to watch something with a giant crowd, and you're just like, and you're totally in after that. Like that experience, I don't think I've ever seen really put together in a movie like that. No, that was a really cool scene.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you both enjoyed it. I think most people will say that Across the Spider-Verse is a better animated movie, and I would put money right now that it will win Best Animated Feature at the Oscars. But I'm glad on this podcast we can have a debate about it because it's fun. It's fun. Like listening to Todd's review was very entertaining.
I'll agree. I think Across the Spider-Verse is a better movie. However, it doesn't mean that this movie, like I'm borderline between 3 and 3.5 on this, and the amount that I agree more with Todd than Zach almost makes me want to make it 3.5. But I'll leave it at 3 for now. So, I don't understand why so many people are having issues with this, and I think you want to talk about people going into a movie, I think, with their mind made up. I'm not saying that's what you did, Zach, but it feels like that's what a lot of people did with this, just because people started to say it was a bad movie before it ever even came out.
I will agree with you that people are unfairly shitting on the movie, and I hate when people say, like, come up with a better idea, and none of these critics come up with better ideas. I didn't come up with a better idea.
You came up with a crappy idea of throwing everything at the canvas and see what
would have been better on third or fourth draft that Terry shit on, but I agree that people did make up their minds a little bit, but the box office kind of confirmed that it earned the exact same amount of money as Toy Story did, but not with any
Not
adjustments
adjusted
made.
for inflation.
Yeah, that's not something to hold your hat high on.
No, but like I said, I think I don't quite understand your point of saying it should have just gone straight to Disney Plus. I mean, are you saying that every Pixar movie should just avoid theaters now and go straight to Disney Plus?
He doesn't support 3D animation.
I found the animation in this movie less captivating than Spider-Verse. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that there wasn't time and effort put into it. But to me, this looked very similar to a lot of other Pixar movies I've seen. And even the character designs, I couldn't discern between the water people at all and Wade's family. They all look the same to me. That was, I think, the biggest problem in the movie. There's not, well, in terms of the character designs, there was nothing that made them look different. They all looked the exact same. Some of them wore glasses, and one of them had a mustache. That's about it. Like, come on, can't we get a little bit more original in both size and proportion, and maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Go ahead.
I don't know.
I mean, apparently, water can morph through a fence. Can't you make these characters look a little bit more somatoform? I don't know.
Yeah, that's why when you first see him, he's like this, like really buff dude, and he's like, "Oh, I got too much water in me. I get back to my normal size." Like, yeah, I mean,
what is interesting about Wade? Can you think of something in his character that makes him interesting besides the fact that he's water? Like, there was absolutely nothing unique about that character, I thought. What would make someone from totally outside his world, and again, he comes from a more privileged position than Ember does, what would make her captivated by him? I was lost.
He does what she can't, and by saying everything that he is thinking and wearing his heart on his sleeve, and she's not allowed to.
How does
That's
that
what she finds
to
intriguing.
romantic feelings? I don't know. Maybe I just lost that part. Maybe they needed a little kid named Jonah calling into a radio show or something like that.
There you
go. It was missing from the movie. But I respect both of your opinions. I'm not actually that far off. I just was disappointed.
I feel like when you compare it to something so original like Spider-Verse, it's not gonna compare.
Exactly. And even
when this is the original story, not something based on countless comic books.
But to go and say that it doesn't even deserve a theater run because it's not Spider-Verse.
No, of course it deserves a theater run.
You said it should have gone straight to Disney Plus.
Well, I'm surprised that it didn't go to Disney Plus. No movie should have to go to Disney Plus. But if you're going to give me a list of 5 movies, and this movie's on here, and Soul is on here, Soul is the one that should be seen in theaters.
Well, Soul came out in the middle of the pandemic, so it didn't go to theaters. And and like Todd said, Pixar's kind of building back because for 2 years, every Pixar movie went to Disney Plus.
Turning Red would be.
And Onward had like half of a theatrical run, and that did about the same. But that was at the very beginning of the pandemic, and that did about the same as this movie, right? So, but that movie would have been huge because that was still when Pixar owned the box office, and so COVID hurt Pixar more than it did anything else.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, families, like, I'm not going to take my family to go see Elemental. Why? Because we're going to wait 2 or 3 months and watch it on Disney Plus. I mean, I think that's what hurts the box office for something like that too. If it's something, especially when the critics are mixed on it, they don't have to go see it right now. So I think that's more the issue. All right.